Welcome to the intersection of Lake and Calaveras Street, right here in Pasadena. 100 years ago, this was the starting point of the Mount Lowe Railway, which would take guests up the mountain on what was at the time the steepest incline railway in the world. Today, the railroad and hotels are gone, but a lot of the history is still there, plus a bunch of massive telescopes. And we're gonna see if we can follow the old rail bed to the top using just our legs and a good old-fashioned bicycle. You might be wondering off the bat, why are we heading away from the mountain? And I'll tell you that answer, it's because there's a great breakfast burrito just down the road here. So we're gonna get some fuel. King's, probably the best breakfast burrito in Pasadena. It's been just long enough since I've biked up Mount Wilson that I've forgotten the pain. I'm remembering the pain. So it begins. This is it. This is it for the next 3 to 4 hours. 3 to 4 hours. Oh, so young, so naive. You gain a lot of elevation quick. By the time you actually hit the trailhead and parking lot up here, you've already gained like 1,000 feet. We just hit the top of the warm-up climb. I'm already drenched in sweat. Back in 1891, Professor Thaddeus Lowe decided he was sick and tired of walking all the way to the top of Mount Wilson and figured it would be just dandy if he and his buddies could hop on a train that would take them directly to the top of the mountain. Turns out, he couldn't get the right-of-way to build a railroad to Mount Wilson, so he turned his attention to the nearby summit, Oak Mountain, which he quickly renamed to Mount Lowe after himself. It's not quite as tall as Mount Wilson, but Professor Lowe couldn't give a rat's ass and got to work building anyway. Construction began on April 12, 1892, and just 1 year later, on the 4th of July, the Mount Lowe Railway officially opened for business. For just $2, folks could hop on a trolley at Lake and Calaveras Street and take a ride to Rubio Canyon before the Great Incline carried them 3,000 feet up the cliffside to the Echo Mountain House and Chalet. From there, the railway continued winding up the mountainside to its upper terminus at the Alpine Tavern, where guests could relax, drink beer, play tennis, and walk out to Inspiration Point for the most magnificent view in Southern California. Things started going wrong almost immediately. In 1900, just 6 years after opening, a fire burned the Echo Mountain House to the ground. It was real bad. In 1907, a landslide took out the pavilion in Rubio Canyon. The final nail in the coffin arrived in 1936 when an electrical fire burned the Alpine Tavern to the ground. And the entire project was abandoned a couple years later when more flash flooding damaged the railroad structures beyond repair. Today, the U.S. Forest Service manages the land, and anyone with some free time and a bit of grit can hike or bike their way to the top. I left at 8:30, and it's 10:40 right now. It says we've been riding an hour, so that's a solid hour plus of dilly-dally time. Off to a great start, I would say. So I don't really know the history of this first section or why it's paved, but it's not part of the railway, which means it's much steeper. Oh, I'm already on my lowest gear. This is it all day. So I did look up the history of Chaney Trail, and it used to be an old wagon road that led up into Millard Canyon. I guess modern day cars can deal with a much steeper grade than olden day trains. Because this section is so steep. It's so bad. It's absolutely brutal. It's 2,200 feet in 4 miles. Steep. Hot and tight. The good news is that once you meet up with the old rail bed, the grade lessens up and it is smooth sailing from there on out. Oh, sure, that part is so steep. It never, ever gets less steep. That is so brutal. Honestly, if you can make it through those first 5 miles of paved section, you've got it. You've got the whole climb in the bag. That's far and away the hardest part of the climb. Welcome to the Mount Lowe Scenic Railway. We're winding our way up. It's pretty wild to build a railroad up this. If at that intersection you could just hop on the cable car, ride your way up here, grab a drink at the hotel bar, watch the sunset, and then take the trolley home. Yeah, I get that dream. But you know what you can do that's almost as good is sweat your ass off all day and drink from the water fountain that's up there. Look at that. Pretty much the same, right? Pretty much the same. Ooh, it's gotten rugged. The Mount Lowe Historical Society actually placed a whole series of interpretive signs along the route. They are in varying degrees of legibility. If memory serves, this is the straightest section of track on the entire railroad. Looking down the canyon wall, you will see Horseshoe Curve, which connected the first and second levels of track. Can you see why it was called Horseshoe Curve? Yes I can. One of the most impressive features is called the Granite Gate. It took crews 8 months to dynamite this passage out of the solid granite, mostly for the photo op, because Professor Lowe knew that would make a killer postcard. As you climb the switchbacks of the Alpine division, you start to see evidence of fire. All of this is scorched. These mountains have caught on fire twice recently. Once in the 2020 Bobcat fire, which almost took out the Mount Wilson Observatory, and most recently in the 2025 Eden fire, which burned a massive chunk of the mountains up here and most of Pasadena. In this area, Chaney Trail was actually the boundary where they were able to contain the fire. Everything down the mountain to the east burned and is still closed. Fortunately, the old site of the Alpine Tavern was spared from another fire, and I stopped in for a break in the shade, some water, and the second half of that breakfast burrito. Today, this is actually the Mount Lowe Trail Camp. There's no fires, no running water, and no trash service. There's an outhouse, which is nice, but otherwise, it's pack it in, pack it out. It is at the top of a 4,000-foot climb, so pack lightly, but it is pretty epic. Strava records me moving for 2 hours and 17 minutes, and I left home 6 hours ago. The dilly-dally ratio is absolutely out of control. As much as I would love to check in and stay the night, we've got mountains to get to the top of. Next stop, Inspiration Point. The rain has not been kind to this. The Alpine Tavern is the end of the line for the Mount Lowe Railway, but Inspiration Point is a destination in and of itself. You can bike or hike to the top, and it is one of the most incredible views over Los Angeles that you can get. As of April 2026, it is unfortunately still closed after the Eden fire. I flew the drone to take a peek, and one of the shade structures is burned down, but it looks like all of the historic spotting scopes are still there. So when it reopens, it's definitely worth adding to your list. It's getting to be afternoon, and we've got a ways still to go to the top of Mount Wilson. So we're just gonna get into climb mode. Yeah, this is no longer the railroad grade. It's still more doable than the paved grade. We can see the notch. That's where we're headed. After that, it's downhill to paved road. After over 6 hours of dilly-dallying, we had finally made it to the top of the dirt climb. And one of my favorite features of this entire route. No, not the Granite Gate, not the Alpine Tavern. It's this tunnel. The first time I ventured up this route, I knew nothing about the railroad, but I'd seen someone post a picture of this tunnel entrance on Instagram with a caption saying that you could ride your bike to it. And that was enough for me. I knew I had to figure out how to go find this thing. And I've ridden through this tunnel half a dozen times now. It does not get old. It's still so freaking cool. It's also a little ironic that just on the other side of the tunnel is a paved road and a turnoff you can park in. You can absolutely walk from your car to this tunnel in about 15 minutes, but that is not what this is about. We had earned it, we took the fun way, and the ride was still not over.
Oh, so good to be back on the road. Oh my goodness. This is the extra credit.
I lied a little bit when I said it was all downhill from here. It could be all downhill, but once you've climbed all this way, it is worth taking the extra credit detour to the top of Mount Wilson and checking out the telescopes and observatory. Just because Professor Lowe didn't go to the top of Mount Wilson doesn't mean that we can't. I mean, everybody loves space stuff, so get up there and check it out. During the summer, you can stop in at the Cosmic Cafe, get a cold beverage or a snack. And once you're done dilly-dallying around the telescopes, it is finally time for the big descent.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is all downhill from here. Oh yeah.
And words cannot describe how sweet that descent is after pedaling up the side of a mountain all day. You might not be able to take a train to the top, but the San Gabriel Mountains have been enticing people to adventure for centuries. And this is just one of hundreds of adventures you can take, stepping back in time and leaving the city behind.
You're up there.
Thanks so much for watching, and if you want more car-free adventures like this, you know what to do.